How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello there, it is Eric Erickson across the nation. Glad to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on, there's something happening right now you need to know about. I've got the TV on. They're broadcasting from the University of Wisconsin on CNN. They're broadcasting from UCLA at MSNBC. They're broadcasting from Fordham University at Fox News, and then they're hopping around. So CNN's live at the University of Wisconsin, but now they're interviewing someone at Columbia. The news media can't avoid talking about this story right now. This is from Scripps News. This is happening right now. Let me just hop around to the news channels so you get a sense of this. This is Scripps News.
Legal, shameful war. Columbia
The
University.
professor of modern Arab studies at Columbia speaking. This is News Nation.
Camp, as well as community members out here. And we just got this statement from California Governor Gavin Newsom. In part, he says the limited and delayed campus law enforcement response at UCLA last night was unacceptable, and it demands answers. As soon as it became clear that state assistance was needed to support a local response, our office immediately deployed CHP personnel to campus.
That's News Nation. Here's Fox News.
The House committees are taking on anti-Semitism, that there's a bipartisan bill, anti-Semitism awareness. Yet from President Biden, Laura, the silence on all of this is deafening.
They were just at Fordham now, suddenly talking to Laura Ingraham. Here's CNN.
The campus restricted to just those students who live there, as well as any essential faculty. Those are the only people who are getting through that entrance.
And that graduation ceremony at Columbia just 2 weeks from now. Gabe Cohen at Columbia, thanks very much for all your reporting. Now to UCLA in Los Angeles, where classes are canceled after violent confrontations broke out between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli counter-protesters.
I mean, everywhere you go in the news is inescapable right now, and this is not good for the Democrats. And this comes as well. There's a piece in the New York Times that the Democrats should pay attention to. I know and like Ross Douthat. Ross Douthat is a columnist at the New York Times. He is on the right, but he writes in a way that progressives will read him. In February, Ross Douthat writes, there was a flurry of discussion about whether Joe Biden's advancing age and seeming weakness in a matchup with Donald Trump meant he should step aside. I wrote a column on that theme. But the more notable, that is, non-conservative voices arguing that Biden should consider withdrawing from the race included polling maven Nate Silver, my colleague Ezra Klein, the report from special counsel Robert Hur, which indicated memory problems for the president, was also part of the discussion. Or, if you prefer the terms favored by the president's allies, part of a unnecessary freakout. The drumbeat for Biden to step aside will only grow louder, ran one headline from that period from Robert Kuttner in the American Prospect. Kuttner was wrong. The drumbeats quieted. All it took was Biden giving a passable State of the Union address. Thereafter, his poll numbers marginally improved. The optimists on the Democratic side seized the rhetorical initiative, and the should Biden step aside discourse faded into background noise. But here we are entering May, with just 6 months before the election, and the basic dynamic that inspired the original discussion and freakout is still with us. Biden's mini surge was, well, miniature. He's still behind in national polling. He still trails Trump in the swing states that won the Electoral College for the Democrats: Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The gap is narrow. Depending on your preferred polling average and what you make of Robert Kennedy's polling numbers, Biden probably needs to make up just a few points to pull ahead. Maybe 3 points, maybe 4, but it's also quite consistent. Since last fall, both candidates are bouncing around within a very narrow range. The Democratic response to this consistency blends unwarranted confidence with unwarranted fatalism. On the one hand, there's the belief that Trump's lead is unsustainable because he has a ceiling and can't get past 50%. But does that matter in the race with several well-known third-party candidates? There's the belief that because voters aren't paying close attention yet, maybe Biden can win, or because polls don't matter until after the convention. In April 2020, Biden led the 538 polling average by 5 points. He won the popular vote in the fall by 4.4 points. Maybe because Trump's trials haven't yet had their effect of what if he's acquitted, though. On the other hand, there's the what can we do irritation with anyone who suggests Biden should deviate from the way he's approached policy and politics to date. He's done great. The public's ungrateful or confused, misled by the media, blinded by partisanship. He should be up 10 points. If he can't win with this record, America deserves what it gets. But there's an alternative view. One plausible lesson of the Trump years is that if you are consistently beating Trump in the polls, you want to be temperamentally cautious, focus on your campaign fundamentals, your get out the vote efforts, and project normalcy at every opportunity. If, on the other hand, you are losing to Donald Trump, and as his Republican rivals were in 2016 and 2020, you cannot rely at all on events or Trump fatigue magically coming to your rescue. Instead, you need to formulate a strategy that's commiserate with the challenge and be willing to break the normal rules of politics in order to deal with the abnormality of Trump himself. The problem with the Biden campaign is that it's being run as though its candidate is in first position, as though it's protecting a lead that Joe Biden doesn't have. Now, let me stop there. And this does echo some of what I said yesterday. But yesterday, well, let me go back. Let me go back on this. Last week, Donald Trump's polling average was got to 0.2%. That was last week. Yesterday, Donald Trump's polling average was 1%. Today, Donald Trump's polling average is 1.5%. What's happened? Let me give you the data in the Real Clear Politics polling average. New York Times Siena remains the only pollster with likely voters. All the other pollsters are registered voters. They will eventually shift. But right now, New York Times Siena, Trump up 1. Yahoo News, tie. NBC News, Trump up 2. Daily Kos, a left-wing pollster, Trump up 1. Emerson, Trump up 3. Quinnipiac leans Democrat and has consistently leaned Democrat. There's a tie. CNN, Trump up 6. Harvard Harris, Trump up 4. Morning Consult, it's a tie. NPR, PBS Marist, it's Biden 2. All of the late-breaking polls have Donald Trump ahead or tied. There are 3 ties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Trumps ahead, and 1 Biden up 2. And the one that has Biden up 2 has one of the largest margins of error and is by a left-wing group, NPR. And it only has Biden up 2. Biden should be up higher than that because, remember, Trump outperforms his polling. In the swing states, it's no better because, nationally, it doesn't really matter. In Arizona, it's Trump up 5. In Nevada, it's Trump up 4.5. In Wisconsin now, it's Trump up 1.8. In Michigan, it's Trump up 1.2. In Pennsylvania, it's Trump up 1. In North Carolina, it's Trump up 5.4. In Georgia, it's Trump up 3.8. Those are the ones that matter. If Donald Trump wins those states, Donald Trump wins the presidency. And this gets to my point at the beginning. Now, it is never my plan to take something that I said in the first hour and weave it into the third hour. I know how people fade in and fade out. I'm flattered by the people who listen all 3 hours, but I don't want you anchored to me for 3 hours. But let me reiterate one of the points I made in my first hour. the hysteria at MSNBC has continued to go up. They continue raising the temperature as they are essentially begging someone to shoot Donald Trump. That's what's going on at MSNBC. I'm not going to make ifs, ands, or buts about it. The hysterics at MSNBC, that he's a unique threat to democracy. He's an existential threat to the republic. He wants to end the republic. He wants to destroy what the founders built. He'll be an authoritarian who never gives up power if he gets elected. We can't allow this. We've got to stop it. Somebody's got to stop it. That is NBC or MSNBC or Comcast, whichever one you want to use, essentially saying, someone please go shoot the blankety blank. They want it to happen. They inspired James Hodgkinson to try to take out members of Congress. No difference between that and this for MSNBC. They say words matter. Their words matter. They know what they're doing. They want to stop Donald Trump through any means necessary. And the court cases aren't turning out for him. Joe Biden's campaigning isn't turning out for him. And as Donald Trump continues to go up in the polls, they got to do something. Just think about this. Last week in the Real Clear Politics polling average, Michigan and Pennsylvania were going for Biden. They're now Trump up 1. And they're now Trump up in Pennsylvania and 1.2 in Michigan. Now this can change. This can change. This can change. But do you really want to take the risk, Democrats? My wife, one of the secrets to our marriage, in addition to a king-size bed, is she doesn't listen to my show. Last night, she says, look, I got to ask you something. She says, this isn't an argument. I'm not arguing. I got to ask you. I got to ask you, are we really stuck with these two? So you mean Trump and Biden? She says, yes. Surely someone's going to step forward and we're not going to have to deal with Trump versus Biden. I was like, no, ma'am. I know there's a woulda, shoulda, coulda fantasy on the right now that Joe Biden's not going to be the nominee. And he still, before the convention, could change. But I'm beginning to think this is going to be Trump versus Biden. And I think the arrogance of the Biden team is that they absolutely think that they can win, but they can't win. Not the way they're going. Ross Douthat is right in the New York Times, but it's the conservative columnist in the New York Times telling people this. And it's the one they got to pay attention to, but it's the one they refuse to acknowledge. It's the one they ignore. Joe Biden is losing to Donald Trump right now. As I said yesterday, incumbency, money, and the people who hate most likely to vote give him all an edge. The people most likely to vote are voting Biden. He's got more money than Trump. He's got incumbency. Those give him an advantage. He should win. But y'all, Trump can win, and the Democrats are convinced he can't. And that is exactly why Trump's going to win if he does. It's because the Democrats have convinced themselves he can't. Because they all hate him, so you must too. And that's not what the polling's saying. You can say the polling's wrong, but the Democrats don't say that. The Democrats believe in the polling, and the polling is showing them Trump can win, and they don't believe that Trump can win despite believing the polls. There's a real disconnect there on their side. It's because of their arrogance. Donald Trump's secret weapon? He always makes the other side behave like they say he does. And it's making them arrogant because they think he is. It's making them not listen because they think he doesn't listen. There's breaking news I have to get to before I get out of here to commercial break. The Federal Reserve has just announced they're keeping interest rates at the 23-year high for the 6th straight meeting. They will not be raising interest rates. Now, the markets, let's see how they're trending right now. The markets have already largely digested the news. They've already kind of decided that this was going to happen. So they're not really changed. The Dow is up 154, S&P down 6, NASDAQ down 11, Russell up 5. They kind of factor this in. The Fed says it's going to keep rates steady. It notes there's a lack of further progress on inflation. So most of the markets, they factored this news in a couple weeks ago. There was lots of buzz that this would be the outcome, so no one's really surprised by this. But it does show the Fed continues to believe inflation is a real concern. And because inflation is a real concern, well, that, my friends, matters for Joe Biden's reelection. As inflation stays up, Joe Biden stays down in the polling. Greetings and welcome. The phone number here, 877-973-7425. Let me go to Perry calling. Welcome to the show, Perry. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome to Woodstock, Eric.
Well, look, I love Woodstock.
I do too. I've been here 100 years. But anyway, my question was, I'm picking up my grandson right now from an elementary school, and there's no protesters here. So where do these people come from? How do they get their message across? And I'm thinking, like I told the call screener, I'm thinking they're getting their message across through the news media, through like you and Fox News and everybody else that covers them. Otherwise, I'm in my 60s. I would not know that they were protesting on college campuses. If that's what they're going there to learn.
I got to ask you. So you're picking up your grandson now. How old is your grandson?
7.
I am actually very disappointed that we don't have any jihadist 7-year-olds there. I mean, they should be protesting for the children of Gaza. Don't you know?
Well,
Yeah. Okay, so let me explain what's going on here, Perry. Listen, you and I, we could both make a joke there that we probably better not, but let me explain what's going on here. Is these kids, so they have what are called Telegram channels and WhatsApp channels and TikTok, and they coordinate their protests behind the scenes with affiliated groups. So they're not watching the CNNs, the Foxes, the MSNBCs per se. They're coordinating in these chat groups with affiliated entities that are coordinated through groups oftentimes in Washington and New York, who then arrange supplies, teach the kids how to protest, show up and help the kids protest. And so to the extent there are outside individuals participating, what they're doing is they're helping the students on campus engage in the protest, teaching them how to protest, providing the supplies for them, whatever they need, not yet munitions. But there are outsiders. The problem here is that the media is now taking the fact that there are outsiders and trying to pretend that it's not actually any college campus kids involved. It's very much the college campus kids involved. They're trying to obfuscate that fact. But yeah, the kids themselves are particularly engaged on these online groups where they collaborate together to cause havoc on these campuses. Now, I want to tell you about this thing that Old Glory Bank is doing. If you've heard me talk about it, and I'm effusive with praise, and rarely am I with something like a bank, but I love Old Glory Bank. It's a bank for the freedom economy and for Americans who share the values, faith, family, freedom, and the flag. And they're doing something remarkable, and I want you to know I've taken advantage of this. They're allowing Americans a chance to own a piece of the history-making bank, but this opportunity closes on May 10th. In their first year, Old Glory Bank added tens of thousands of accounts in all 50 states. They grew deposits to over $115 million. They've got consumer accounts, business accounts, home loans, their own payment app called Old Glory Pay. They've even got Old Glory Cash In, which allows 88,000 retail locations around the country. You can deposit cash in your Old Glory Bank account. I've used it. It works. All the innovations, now you get a chance to buy into Old Glory Bank. It ends May 10th. If you're interested in their unique public-private placement opportunity, go to own.oldglorybank.com. That's own.oldglorybank.com. You got to be an accredited investor. Ownership interest is not a deposit at Old Glory Bank. These are not FDIC-insured investments. It's not guaranteed. It may lose value. I've done it. If you want to look at it, own.oldglorybank.com. Greetings. Welcome. Glad to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, I'm happy to have you. My buddy Jeremiah sent me a text message. I had read the article, and I actually think it's worth spending some time with. And it's nice to see the Atlantic, of all publications, step up and do something like this. For a liberal publication, they've got some sensibilities on occasion. I just want to read you a portion of this. Peace in the Israel-Palestine conflict has already been difficult to achieve before Hamas's barbarous October 7th attack and Israel's military response. Now it seems almost impossible, but its essence is clearer than ever. Ultimately, a negotiation to establish a safe Israel beside a safe Palestinian state. Whatever the enormous complexities and challenges of bringing about this future, one truth should be obvious among decent people. Killing 1,400 people and kidnapping more than 200, including scores of civilians, was deeply wrong. The Hamas attack resembled a medieval Mongol raid for slaughter and human trophies, except it was recorded in real time and published to social media. Yet since October 7th, Western academics, students, artists, and activists have denied, excused, or even celebrated the murders by a terrorist sect that proclaims an anti-Jewish genocidal program. Some of this is happening out in the open, some behind the masks of humanitarianism and justice, and some in code, most famously, quote unquote, from the river to the sea. A chilling phrase that implicitly endorses the killing or deportation of 9 million Israelis. It seems odd that one has to say, killing civilians, old people, even babies, is always wrong, but today, say it one must. How can educated people justify such callousness and embrace such inhumanity? All sorts of things are at play here, but most of the justification for killing civilians is based on a fashionable ideology, decolonization, which taken at face value rules out the negotiation of two states, the only real solution to the century of conflict, and is a dangerous and false dichotomy. I always wondered about the leftist intellectuals who supported Stalin, and those aristocratic sympathizers and peace activists who excused Hitler. Today's Hamas apologists and atrocity deniers with their robotic denunciations of settler colonialism belong to the same tradition, but worse. They have abundant evidence of the slaughter of old people, teenagers, and children, but unlike those fools of the 1930s who slowly came around to the truth, they have not changed their views an iota. The lack of decency and respect for human life is astonishing. Almost instantly after the Hamas attack, a legion of people emerged who downplayed the slaughter or denied actual atrocities had even happened, as if Hamas had just carried out a traditional military operation against soldiers. October 7 deniers, like Holocaust deniers, exist in an especially dark place. The ideology of decolonization, powerful in the academy but long overdue for serious challenge, is a toxic, historically nonsensical mix of Marxist theory, Soviet propaganda, and traditional anti-Semitism from the Middle Ages in the 19th century. But its current engine is the new identity analysis, which sees history through a concept of race that derives from the American experience. The argument is that it is almost impossible for the oppressed to be themselves racist, just as it is impossible for an oppressor to be the subject of racism. Jews, therefore, cannot suffer racism because they are regarded as white and privileged, although they cannot be victims. They can and do exploit others, less privileged people in the West, through the sin of exploitative capitalism, and the Middle East through colonialism. This leftist analysis, with its hierarchy of oppressed identities and intimidating jargon, a clue to its lack of factual rigor, has in many parts of the academy and media replaced traditional universalist leftist values, including internationalist standards of decency and respect for human life and the safety of innocent civilians. With this clumsy analysis collides with the realities of the Middle East, it loses all touch with historic facts. Sounds like me, sounds like something I could have written, but it's in the Atlantic, which is good that they're moving forward on this. And it is bad that people in this country have embraced the victimhood of the Palestinians. You know, the Palestinians are a group of disparate tribes. They're not actually an ethnicity. They're not actually a nationality. Palestinians are the blanket for the various tribes within Palestinian territory they're different. They're not all the same. It's not like the Israelis who are overwhelmingly either Jewish or Arab. It's the Palestinians are different tribes of Arabs, blanketly called Palestinians. And yet there are people in this country who want to ignore it. Now, I'm going to bring this up, but Vinny is calling from Bowling Springs, South Carolina. I want you to take this. Vinny, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Eric. Listen, I got a question for you. I guess I'm an oppressor. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon heterosexual with a question. Hey, Biden just announced the other day there that he was going to be flying all these Palestinians over. In my eyes, a Palestinian terrorist, Palestinian, the Hamas. Why? What can we do as people? American citizens. Yes, I'm an oppressor. I'm white Anglo-Saxon.
Well, okay, so
I don't care.
Vinny, I got to tell you, I have a black, homosexual, transgender, one-armed amputee Muslim who's on the other line that I'm going to have to take their question instead because since you're the oppressor, in woke intersexualism, I got to go there first.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
I
No.
don't
Okay.
mind.
So,
I'm a
but to
peaceful
your
one. I'll be
point
patient.
is listen. People think you're making this up, and you're not. Joe Biden's administration yesterday said they're considering bringing Palestinians into this country to protect them from the violence of the Middle East. The Importing Terrorism Act, I guess they're going to call it. It's you listen. I thought it was nuts. I really did. I thought surely this is not so. But at a time that even Democrats are supporting mass deportation, the Democrats in the White House have decided to bring the Palestinian people here. We see them marching in the streets in Dearborn, Michigan, and elsewhere, chanting "Death to the Jews." Who exactly are we going to bring in? Yes, I'm glad you called to bring that up because I had been meaning to bring it up, and it ties in perfectly to this. Now, where is this? Jim Hassan, I got to hang on a second because he just pointed this out. John Hassan pointed this out. One of the people who showed up at the University of San Francisco is a Palestinian immigrant who shared videos of Hamas's spokesman on Facebook. Ada Othman, 39 years old, is charged with trespass on property, unlawful assembly, and he brought a gun. He brought a gun to the protest at the University of San Francisco and shared a speech from Hamas's spokesman on October 10th championing the death of the Jews. And Joe Biden wants to import more Palestinians into this country. Y'all, this is insane. And I know there are progressives out there saying, not all Palestinians are terrorists, but lately all the terrorists have been Palestinians. How do we pick and choose? Who do we bring in? How can we vet them? Did you cheer on Hamas on October 7th? This is crazy talk by the Democrats. Hamas is still holding Americans hostage, and Joe Biden wants to bring Palestinians to this country. He would sooner bring Palestinians to this country than fight to get Americans released from captivity in Palestinian territory. He abandoned 78,000 Afghans who worked with the United States government, who even now are being hunted and murdered by the Taliban, but he wants to bring in Palestinians with no history of supporting the United States to this country. He removed the Houthi from a terror list. How much more anti-American can Joe Biden's administration get? It's kind of crazy. Let's just review here. Let's just review. Joe Biden left behind in Afghanistan 78,000 Afghanis who worked with the United States, collaborated with the United States, and they're now being hunted by the Taliban and killed. He even left behind American citizens. Joe Biden took the Houthi off the terror list, and the Houthi are now terrorizing vessels in the Middle East. Joe Biden sent money to Iran and turned a blind eye to Iran selling its oil to China to fund Hamas. And now Joe Biden wants to import Palestinians from Hamas-controlled territory to this country. So he was willing to leave behind Afghans who helped us, but he wants to bring Palestinians who chant death to the Jews to this country, while not first getting Americans who are hostages of Hamas out. So he'll bring Hamas-sympathizing Palestinians to this country while keeping Americans hostage to Hamas. This is the Biden administration. The Biden administration, their brain broke at the end of February in the Michigan primary when so many Democrats voted uncommitted, and they've interpreted that as we've got to suck up to terrorist sympathizers in order to beat Donald Trump. Democrats, you do understand this, right? That Joe Biden's campaign has decided in order to beat Donald Trump, they need the votes of terrorist sympathizers. That's a damning indictment on the state of the Democratic Party that you people puff up your chest and talk about, at least we didn't do January 6th, except you're relying on the votes of people who cheered on October 7th, who are right now storming college campuses, smashing windows, vandalizing the places. You'd think it was the U.S. Capitol. It looks like an insurrection to me. These are the votes of the people you want to be Donald Trump. And now Joe Biden wants to import Palestinians into this country from Hamas-controlled terrorists while Americans are still being held hostage by Hamas. This is not a man who deserves re-election as president of the United States. This is a man whose bad ideas need to go to the ash heap of history and stay there. This is absurd and offensive. He would leave behind Afghans who are loyal to the United States, but to placate terrorist sympathizers, import pro-Hamas Palestinians into this country just to win an election. As Robert Gates said, who was Barack Obama's defense secretary, Joe Biden has been wrong about every foreign policy decision for 50 years. And here we go again. My buddy Joe, who is the program director at my affiliate in Lafayette, Louisiana, said I should plug stamps.com. And what happened? So I told you I've been sending a lot of packages out. I've been sending packages to program directors around the country and others. They get a nice Yeti tumbler and some golf balls and a note and some other stuff for putting me on their station. And I finally got the tumblers that I'm behind and sending them to people. So I've been working. And that's where stamps.com comes in handy. They made it so easy. And I saved money. And pickup came to my office. I didn't have to drop them off. And I got great UPS and post office rates, up to 89% savings. I literally use stamps.com. You can too. You go to stamps.com, you click the microphone, and you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K. And you can get shipping and saving with stamps.com. You get a free digital scale. You get some postage. You do not have a contract to sign. You do not have a long-term commitment to sign. You don't have a contract to sign. You're not committed. You can walk away whenever you need to, but they will save you money while you're using them. You can arrange the fastest option, the cheapest option, the best option. You can arrange pickup at your office. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to interact with people. You just put your packages there, and UPS or the post office, whichever one you ship with, they come pick it up. Stamps.com. Click on the microphone. Put in my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Get shipping, get saving today. Correction. I said University of San Francisco. It's University of South Florida. I saw USF and thought University of San Francisco. University of South Florida, where these protesters, including the one 39-year-old Palestinian man, showed up with a gun. You should see the picture of these people. They all look the same. I mean, it's like you're staring at the same person. Crazy. And they all got the wild, like, meth head look, too. Some of them students, some of them not. Just crazy people. My goodness. Speaking of crazy people, Joe Biden has just announced his administration is approving $6.1 billion in student debt cancellation for 370,000 borrowers who attended the Art Institutes. The Art Institutes. Wow. He's just trying to buy off the votes and really not reading the mood of the country right now. You got massive protests at colleges around the country, and you're going to forgive the loans of people who went to the Art Institutes. Now, what they're saying is because the Art Institutes went out of business. And so they're closed 18 campuses around the country due to declining enrollment. So they're gonna bail on the student loans of these kids. You know, my kid wanted to go to an art school, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and she just decided, one, she was good at math, she wanted to do that, and two, that she was my kid, so she would probably not fit in with the type of people who went, and also it was just so expensive. So she's going to get a degree in chemistry. At least she wanted to do engineering, decided to move to chemistry because she's got a friend who's really good at calculus, and she fights. She's got 100 in AP calculus, but she fights for it. The friend doesn't. She wasn't sure she wanted to spend that much time on calculus. She might still move in engineering, go biochem, something like that. But anyway, decided she didn't need to get the art degree with all the flaky liberals. And now Biden wants to forgive their loans. Y'all, Joe Biden, the amount of money Joe Biden has dedicated to student loan forgiveness exceeds all the money the United States has ever spent at the federal level on education for colleges combined for the entirety of our nation's history. That's how much it is. Forget Ukraine. This is the outrage. This is the one Republicans should be fighting. This is the ones we should be stopping. This is the ones that we should go to court and sue over. The ongoing effort to bail on student loans is remarkable, shameful even. And yet Joe Biden's doing it because he's got to cobble together a coalition of progressives who will stand by him to win his reelection. Just offensive and absurd. And while all of this is happening, he's broken the college administration and admissions process. The New York Times has this story today, and it's something I've been warning you about. Selective college admissions have been a vortex of anxiety and stress for what seems like forever, inducing panic in more top high school seniors each year. But the 2023-24 admissions season was not just an incremental increase in the frantic posturing and high-pressure guesswork that makes it an annual rite. This year's different. A number of factors combined to push the process into a new realm in which the old rules didn't apply, and even the gatekeepers seemed not to know what the new rules were. It started with a precipitous rise in the number of people clamoring to get in. The so-called Ivy Plus schools, the 8 members of the Ivy League, plus MIT, Duke, Chicago, and Stanford, received 175,000 applications in 2002. In 2022, they received 590,000 with only a few spots. And then the ACT scores started going up. Well, then FAFSA happened. Disarray in the federal application for student loan. And colleges and universities can't admit kids and can't process their applications and their money and their expenses because Joe Biden's administration broke FAFSA. Campuses are struggling. Of the 735 first-year students that Middlebury College enrolled last year, 516 were admitted via binding early decisions. Some schools have a second round of early decisions and even what amounts to an unofficial third round. But with the new rules in disarray, colleges aren't able to admit kids early. There's just disarray. My daughter has been admitted. She got admitted to the University of Georgia. She got admitted to Mercer University. That's where she's going to wind up going. And they can't get any of the students' information about scholarships yet because of the FAFSA screw-up. So she's been admitted. She's got some initial scholarship money. We're hoping to get some more. We are trying to avoid doing student loans, but we can't do anything. Everybody's paralyzed, including the college, until we know about what the bill is going to look like. It's absurd, and it's brought to you by a Biden administration that has screwed all of this up and now wants to bail out the progressives.